Oh no! Disaster! That can only mean one thing!
Doggone it, you're right. It looks like they've ordered a sequel.
Oh.
When it comes to sequels for movies, games, or really anything, it's a bit of a gamble. Usually what happens is that it's good as the first, but not as good. But what happens more often are extreme cases, like it being an abysmal mess that goes down in infamy.
And I've got a whole filing cabinet of the usual suspects.
Or, in the odd case, it can end up being a masterpiece that ultimately surpasses the predecessor. However, today's about the most improved sequels instead of just the best sequels. Rather than just discuss how great the final product is, our focus is how a sequel went above and beyond the Call of Duty to increase the quality compared to its predecessor. As such, I can't really put a mainline Mario game on the list since they're typically great and constantly improving at a nice linear pace. So picking one wouldn't really be fair? Sorry about that. Welcome to KH World, the most fun and confusing place on Earth. Over the last few years, we had some complaints about how the park was run, stilted gameplay, confusing camera controls, and that one year we just decided to do a card game theme. I know most of you hated that last one, though I kinda liked it. This year we decided to listen and improve ourselves to better serve your needs. You wanted faster and better flowing gameplay? Done! You wanted more worlds? We almost doubled them. You want more and better bosses? I think Mr. Groundshaker would like to meet you. You want more abilities? Say hello to Drive Forms and their insane combo potential. You want crazy action sequences that go great with music from a Hideo Kojima game? Reaction commands for the win! We've also taken upon ourselves to add quality of life changes too. Updated menu interface, better graphics, more dynamic music, change the camera controls to the right stick, and of course, to those with Riku and some PTSD, skippable cutscenes. Unfortunately, we couldn't fix the story issues that people had. Honestly, I think we made it worse. But we had a really cool final boss for everyone. You like that, right? So come on over to the newly dubbed KH2 Land. We have something for everyone that likes Disney, action RPGs, and crazy gameplay. Disclaimer, KH Land is a property of Square Enix, Disney, and No More's Crazy Dreams. KH2 Land may not appeal to everyone. Also, don't expect KH3 Land for 13 years and it may or may not be better than KH2 Land. Also, expect a bunch of spin-off contests in the interim.
What? You talk about Kingdom Hearts this much and still make it interesting.
In an ancient time of quarters and arcade cabinets, Gauntlet really set the bar high for multiplaying arcade games. Along with being one of the first multiplayer dungeon crawlers in a cabinet, it really drew in a crowd as a fast-paced melting pot of mazes, magic, monsters, and nostalgia. Naturally, it spawned its fair share of sequels, including what I believe is the most improved of the bunch, Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Believe it or not, Dark Legacy is actually an extension of the third title in the series, Gauntlet Legends, a harrowing hack and slashing tale of our fantasy protagonists embarking on a quest to collect 4 keys and rid the world of evil. Legends on its own performed really well, so what makes Dark Legacy any better?
The fun has been doubled!
Yeah, I know. Obvious joke is obvious, but it fits!
They took everything great about Legends and doubled it. Doubled the worlds to visit. Double the lineup of playable characters. Also, they added melee combos and team attacks, and there's plenty of fun to be had with that, screwing with your friends. And to add a little something extra, they also included a lot of fun collectibles that can unlock new worlds and cheat codes that can unlock new costumes, abilities, and even a heftier lineup of secret characters, such as an enchanted chicken that can shoot fireballs. There's only one real reason Dark Legacy isn't on the higher end of this list. The desert and forest realms were originally designed for the cabinet version of Gauntlet Legends, which didn't have the ice or sky worlds, so I'm honestly unsure if I can count those. But if you like the original and Legends, then you'll definitely get a kick out of this little upgrade with or without your buddies around.
Remember when I used to be excited for the yearly Call of Duty releases? Times sure have changed, haven't they?
While Modern Warfare 2 is easily my favorite of the series, the original Modern Warfare undeniably had the biggest impact. The big change it made was right in the title, moving the action to the modern day. This was really innovative at a time when the market was oversaturated with World War II shooters, before getting oversaturated with modern military shooters, which was before futuristic shooters took over.
My mom says fads go in a cycle.
While the campaign was a bit on the short side, it made up for it with fantastically designed set pieces and some genuinely shocking moments that you just can't do in a World War II setting. Well, one that was historically accurate anyway. It was definitely a cinematic experience, one that many try to emulate today, including Activision. But the biggest thing added was the multiplayer. There's a lot to talk about. First, the ranking system allowed a feeling of achievement as you played. Also, Call of Duty 4 was the first of the series to introduce customizable loadouts. Yeah, before this game, you couldn't do that. It also brought attachments and perks which provided a level of customization that many modern games have to thank for it. And finally, the introduction of kill streaks, which rewarded you for good gameplay. There is so much modern gaming owes to the improvements featured in Call of Duty 4. Not only from the cinematic storytelling, but from how much it changed multiplayer shooters. While the games after this weren't bad for the most part, they were more gradual improvements to an existing foundation rather than the complete overhaul that Modern Warfare was.
It might be hard to imagine for some people, but Call of Duty used to not be a household name. Well, then again, it's not like it's much of one these days.
Face it, you can't dive into the FPS genre without hearing about the Doom franchise once or twice. But for those still learning, here's a small taste of what you can expect.
Pretty much that.
The first Doom was definitely one of the more controversial games at the time, especially for the more religious crowds. Other than that, the original Doom was widely praised for its fast-paced arcade gameplay and stellar graphics. Naturally, it also spawned a fair deal of sequels. One of them I want to briefly mention real quick, Doom 3. Unlike its predecessors, Doom 3 tried to shake things up by including more survival horror elements over the classic gameplay. Not a bad idea in theory, and Doom 3 still boasts some eerie, nice graphics and a really spooky ambience, but at least 2/3 of the game is slower than it should be. And of course, you still have the annoying little things like all the jump scares and how your gun doesn't come with a flashlight and you can't hold both. Someone had to create a mod where your gun has a flashlight duct taped to it. Yes, that is as sad as it sounds. 12 years later in 2016, a new reboot simply named Doom was released. Already know what you're thinking. Sounds like another soulless cash grab that barely captures the series' charm, right?
Wrong!
In reality, the Doom reboot is a glorious return to form compared to Doom 3. It ditches the survival horror style gameplay, returning to the classic shoot and run format. It has the perfect tone of non-stop violent action and makes good on that promise. No weapon reloading and no tutorials. It just drops you right in the middle of the action without wasting any time. I also really like the characterization they gave the Doom guy, keeping his apparent title as the Doom Slayer ambiguous and choosing instead to have his actions speak for themselves. And when he pulls off the glory kills,
It's sublime. It's good.
I think the only thing that really holds it back is the multiplayer mode is kinda underwhelming. Thankfully, no one really plays Doom for the multiplayer. They're in it for the classic gameplay merged with Doom 3 graphics to make one rapid-fire onslaught of testosterone and death. If you were paying attention to games media around 2008 to 2009, this iconic shot of Nathan Drake hanging from a train that itself is also hanging from the side of a cliff would be ingrained in your memory. Uncharted 2 Drake's Fortune did everything Uncharted 1 did except exponentially better, with a level of flair most thought was impossible on current generation systems. This scene was so mind-blowing and insane that everyone kind of forgot that the original was, let's just say, lackluster. Well, I mean, yes, you have to start somewhere, but Uncharted 1 was a genuinely bad game. Clunky combat, wonky story, lots of hand-holding, and frustrating design. I never really felt like Indiana Jones. Instead, it felt more like Short Round.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes.
It's so mediocre, I'm shocked that it got a sequel. It just kind of lacked the depth and real Naughty Dog charm that the studio was known for. Then we get Uncharted 2 Drake's Fortune. The dialogue feels organic, the story is 10 times more epic, and for the first time, the graphics felt next gen. While the first game had its fair share of glitches and felt really uninspired, Uncharted 2 felt silky, buttery smooth and was fun from beginning to end. This game brought the Uncharted franchise from a misguided at best launch title for the PlayStation 3 into one of the system's biggest and most iconic mascots. And again, it all stems from this. A lot of you may be too young to remember, but there was a period in time where games were considered nothing more than a children's toy. Just think back to the legislation that nearly saw the government deciding what kinds of games can and cannot be made. Sorry, Australia. This eventually led to the ESRB, which as we all know has correctly labeled games and always given out age ratings based on the content inside, making sure that parents understand what they are getting into and don't accidentally expose their child to potentially harmful content.
It makes choosing video games easier.
Okay, now that that is out of my system, let's get back on track. For a period of time, both developers, publishers, and general audiences saw games as toys for kids. This was until the release of Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid. It was admittedly a short game at around 3 to 5 hours that focused on set pieces and stories. It even implemented actual cinematography used in film in order to get one message across. Video games can be art. And with over 49 million sales worldwide, Kojima basically blasted that message with a megaphone. This game became so synonymous with Metal Gear that a lot of people actually don't know it's technically a sequel.
Wait. A Metal Gear game we don't know about? Oh, this should be interesting. How is it? That's not Metal Gear.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that Metal Gear started here on the NES or PC Engine. Sure, if you're playing the PC Engine build, it's actually not a terrible game and you really get to see how Hideo tried to implement story and intrigue even back in these days, but...
Zanzibar hamsters.
I don't care. It looks bad, is really clunky, and that's if you're lucky to play the PC Engine version. The one Americans got was even worse, as it gutted the AI and made the game 10 times more cryptic, likely an attempt to sell more Nintendo Power magazines. It's a difficult game that was not the best, although maybe for the time it was...
Zanzibar hamsters.
Yeah, between this and this, it's hard to believe that it's the same series. Metal Gear Solid not only was a great sequel with vastly improved and expanded gameplay and a more coherent story, it paved the way for games with more serious adult themes. The visuals, looked good at the time. Play the remake for the GameCube, save yourself the eyesore. Oh, Valve. Seems like it was not too long ago we were just discussing all the blunderous fails they brought to the table. But now, let's let bygones be bygones by bringing up something that really sets the bar high for them. Their sequels. Taking already amazing classic titles and adding a bit of extra spice to them to really give you more bang for your buck. For example, Dota 2. Actually, this might be a bit of an iffy example since Defense of the Ancients was actually a community-created mod for Warcraft 3. However, the map became so popular that eventually one of the lead designers was recruited by Valve to string together a whole game based on the mod. That's about as much of an improvement as you can get, blossoming from a universally loved community mod to an equally praised full-fleshed game. Now onto the actual sequels, starting with Portal 2. The original Portal is as great as it is with its unique gameplay, dark sense of humor, and just GLaDOS in general. Seriously, not even Hal from A Space Odyssey is able to walk the line between hilariously deadpan and legitimately terrifying as she can.
We will stop enhancing the truth in 3, 2...
With Portal 2, however, the game mechanics are a lot more fleshed out so you can get a better handle on the environment. And of course, they really added a little extra zest to the humor, which definitely shows when you're forced into a buddy comedy plot with GLaDOS, who's stuck in a potato battery. Spoiler alert, she's still awesome.
I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down!
Then you've got Half-Life 2. The original Half-Life 2, the first game was already a revolution in the FPS genre thanks to how immersive the experience is. The sequel actually makes the gameplay a lot smoother and properly introduced its own little revolution to the genre. The gravity gun. This little gizmo radically transformed puzzle solving for the better by allowing you to firmly bend the elements to your will. And then of course you have arguably the most renowned Valve sequel of all.
TF2.
To go further back, the original Team Fortress was actually a mod for id Software's Quake back in 1996 before being retooled into its own little title in 1999, Team Fortress Classic. General consensus that it was a fun, gruff little shooting game, though the graphics left a lot to be desired. Nearly a decade later when Team Fortress 2 came along, they didn't expand upon it. They reinvented it. They gave the whole series a new Pixar-esque art style to make every little thing stand out. They also really fleshed out the mercenaries with their own individual personalities and quirks. And the lore? They went all out with the lore with their own webcomics and animated shorts. For a fun touch of continuity, they even managed to make the characters from the original game into their own entities in the comics. And this is where we talk about Valve's third titles. If they had one! Unfortunately, even though they've discussed plans to release a third title for certain games, we've yet to see them formally release anything as a trilogy. We've seen plenty of spin-off titles, but nothing that counts as an official third entry. This could be a good thing because you don't want to overstretch your franchise, but their track record shows that they do have the means to pull off something good with a third entry. Oh well, looks like we won't be getting a Team Fortress 3 anytime soon, and that Half-Life 3 coming soon memes shall thrive evermore.
Alright, show of hands. How many people have played Street Fighter? 1. Liar!
Not to say it's a bad game. It introduced the two main leads, Ryu and Ken, and showed off the 6-button control scheme and command-based special techniques that would be used in later fighting games. But all you had were 2 playable characters and 10 basic opponents. Not a bad start, but come on, just 2 characters? Street Fighter II: The World Warrior was created because Capcom wanted to take the concept of Street Fighter and make it into a household name. Now we have 8 playable characters, keeping Ryu and Ken, but also adding series regulars like Chun-Li, Zangief, Blanca, and
Guile.
They also added increased gameplay speed, the ability to combo, that one was by accident, 12 fightable characters, and updated sound design and graphics. And over the years, the game just kept getting poured in and having new content added with smoother gameplay, more playable characters, and an overhaul to the character movesets. While the game is lauded as a trendsetter, it's only number 3 because the next 2 games just beat it in overall improvements. With its focus on new characters and faster gameplay, the game became a worldwide hit. Street Fighter II became noted as one of the greatest games of all time, and the SNES version was Capcom's highest selling game for a long time and still sits in its top 5 today.
Really makes you think. Street Fighter 1? What's that?
This game was... For many people, Smash was the only reason to even buy a GameCube. And believe it or not, Super Smash Bros. Melee, it was a rush job.
We do not deserve you, Sakurai!
Let's face it, when Smash Bros. Came out on the N64, it was a gimmick. One that was admittedly cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Donkey Kong beat up Link? However, it was still one of those awkward N64 games that desperately needed more space than CDs would have provided at the time. That's where Melee comes in. It introduced many things, the FMV connected story introductions we know today, the iconic themes that got ingrained in our minds, and most importantly, it not only included all 12 playable characters from the N64, but it bumped up the total playable characters from 12 to 25. Heck, you even start out with more characters than the previous game.
Yes, this was the Smash Ultimate before Smash Ultimate.
Melee was a game that put other fighting games to shame. With the sheer amount of game modes, stages, and customization options, you could conjure hundreds of fun scenarios to fight in. You want to play the game like it's Street Fighter? Stamina battle. How about instead of playing the game, you could just make the AI on max difficulty duke it out? Also extremely doable.
Honestly, I could go on all day about every single thing they added, every single game mode, every single detail, every little thing, just to give you pure, unadulterated crossover joy. But I got a countdown to finish.
Devil May Cry 3, let Dante be Dante and everything's better. TIE Fighter, big step up in simulation games. Mystery Dungeon Explorers, they didn't have to go that hard with the story. They did anyway. Every Pokemon generation from 2 to 4, like for real, each one added so much. Civilization 5, what if we used hexagons? Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, lots of new characters and engaging story mode, and amazing how teleporting completely changes the game. Assassin's Creed 2, far less repetitive level design and more dynamic cutscenes and story. Jak 3, triple the weapons, triple the vehicles, and triple the plot twists. Kirby Superstar, abilities fleshed out with multiple moves and a variety of storylines. Fire Emblem Awakening, child units and casual mode saves the franchise. Super Metroid, more fun abilities and weapons, and a freaking map! Resident Evil 7, what if we made an actual scary game and not a game like Michael Bay? Sam & Max, The Devil's Playhouse. Okay, a Sam & Max game is not supposed to make me feel this emotional. Let me take you back to the distant past. A time of pixels and 8-bit sounds. A time of a limited color palette. The year? 1986. It is the era of the NES. Legends state that Kid Icarus started life as a screen-wrapping action game in the same vein as Metroid. Then it vanished, as if it had never been for nearly 26 years. There was a Game Boy game, but no one talks about that one. Suddenly, out of the ether, it appeared. Kid Icarus Uprising. While Smash Bros. Brawl made people clamor for a new entry in this franchise, no one was expecting the E3 2010 trailer when it dropped. But when it did, it was a stunning display for anyone familiar with the series. Suddenly, everything was in 3D. There was voice acting. There were colors. Well, more colors. The orchestral score wasn't half bad either. Then the game launched, and the trailers did nothing to prepare us for just how crazy awesome the game would be. Innovative controls allowing shooting in all directions and smooth motion. A stunning soundtrack that pushed the 3DS sound chip to its limits. Graphics that were way ahead of its time. Deep lore that connected you to the world of Kid Icarus that Pit inhabited. But one thing stood above all these great qualities: the humor. You can barely go a minute without hearing some ingenious quip or exchange between the characters, such as,
Bigger isn't always better, you know.
Small things please small minds.
The best things come in small packages.
So do small potatoes.
Great oaks from little acorns grow.
Talk softly and carry a big stick.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
I'm large and in charge?
You're too big for your britches.
A bird in the hand will keep the doctor away?
What?
The squeaky wheel gets the worm.
Nope. Stop.
I love the dynamic between Pit and Veridi. They're like bickering siblings. The characters' chemistry feels so natural, and the voice actors really sell it. I mean, most of the humor probably wouldn't land half as well if the voice actors didn't do such a stellar job, so kudos to them. Kid Icarus Uprising stands at the top of this list because it is the improved sequel that all sequels aspire to be like. It took the borderline nothing that the previous game had and ran with it. It improved the gameplay, graphics, and story. It shows that greatness can come from absolutely nowhere. But most of all, it managed to boast being an excellent standalone game without having to live in its predecessor's shadow.
I'm the Fiery Joker, and I just want to...
Cut!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member, and you'll get rewards like this. Our name shoutouts come from Chris Adia, the Gotcha Tuber, Ryan Anderson, Sonic Cody, and Misty Phantom. Thanks for watching.